Yesterday's proceedings, may I call on Ms. Catherine Ruiz.
Daghang salamat. Maayong buntag, maayo nga aga sa atong tanan. Maayo ba ang mga tulog nato? Oo. Sige, with a smile, no? We went to sleep with a smile. Before we start, before I give you the recap, which is my task for this day, I'd like you to look at your neighbor to your left and give him or her a smile. And the person to your right, with a maayo nga buntag smile. Sige, let me go to my task. Everyone will agree with me that when I say we had a very fruitful, meaningful, and oftentimes passionate discussions, no? Yesterday, especially during the open forum, and the workshops, of course. We started with the discussion on the framework for non-government participation on two platforms, the Open Government Partnership and the Participatory Governance Cluster. We then introduced to you selected platforms for participation, specifically the Local Governance Program of the DILG, the Quadruple 8 Hotline spearheaded by the Office of the Cabinet Secretary, and the Freedom on Information Program initiated by the Presidential Commission's Operations Office. We then shared with you the results of the 2016 Philippine CSO Sustainability Index, which we hope allowed you a perspective, no, on how to meaningfully engage civil society in your communities, in your municipalities and cities, and even at the national level. Finally, your inputs, all our inputs were gathered through workshop in order to enhance or even validate the proposed initiatives for the Participatory Governance Cluster Roadmap Phase 2. And we also tried to call out your ideas for possible themes for the Open Government Partnership sub-national commitments, including the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. On the screen, you will see the summarized outputs. You will see the summarized outputs from the workshop on the various themes for the Open Government Partnership sub-national commitments. Given the diversity of the participants in this dialogue, the first of 6 dialogues to be rolled out, our discussion ranged from constructive to critical to humorous to intense and often, but never bordering on rude, no? From cold to hot to out of the box and whatever else adjectives you may want to describe yesterday's discussion. But still, at the end of the day, we ended up as brothers and sisters in the common cause for good governance. And we ended up with a smile because we are in the land of sugar and we are in the city of smiles. So we hope that for today's activity, we will be as engaged and as active as we were yesterday. And even beyond today, we go back to our places of work, our places of residence, and continue on with the work to making the Philippine governance more responsive, transparent, accountable, and inclusive. Mayong buntag ug daghang salamat.
Thank you, Ms. Cathy. By the way, I'm Christian Nagaynay. I'm from the ILG Regional Office 6, and I'll be hosting the rest of the sessions for today. Yes, sir.
Ay, doon lang sa recap kahapon ba? Doon sa Region 7, ibabalik ko lang, hindi kasi nailagay na niregister namin kahapon na hindi yun majority, quote-unquote majority, kasi walang brainstorming na nangyayari doon.
Sige po, we'll take note of that and the documenters will put that into record. Thank you very much, sir, for pointing that out. At this point, yesterday we focused the discussions on OGP and PGC. And today we're trying to usher in a new focus, especially on the aspect of governance where openness and participation is imperative. So this is about public finance, and that is government, revenue, and budget. So to provide us with the overview of the 2018 National Budget and the Budget Reform Bill, we are joined today by the Director of the Fiscal Planning and Reforms Bureau of the Department of Budget and Management. He is also the Chief Secretariat of the Development Budget Coordination Committee and its Executive Technical Board. His recent assignments include being the Chief Secretariat of the PFM Committee that implements the various PM and PFM reforms and the supervision of the Philippine OGP Secretariat. A round of applause, please, for Director Rolando Toledo. Sir.
Maayong buntag. Good morning. All right, I've heard from the recap this morning that you have a passionate discussion yesterday as far as the PGC and the Open Government Partnership is concerned. Okay, I hope you bring that also, that passion until now, given this discussion, especially on the overview of the budget and the budget reform bill. It is timely for us to share with you this budget overview of the budget just because we're just starting the year of implementing the 2018 budget. And at the same time, it would be good to discuss with you the budget reform bill, given the fact that we are about to start, or even we already started the preparation of the 2019 budget, which we have a shift, or rather a framework that we have adopted for the preparation for the 2019. But first, I would like to discuss the budget for the 2018. Okay, so the first budget this administration prepared from inception to execution. Okay, rallying behind the banner of change, we proposed the theme of budget that reforms and transform for the fiscal year 2018 budget, crafted to reflect the policies and programs that will reform and transform society towards attainment of the collective aspiration of the Filipino people. So this budget gives great emphasis to efficient and effective service delivery, one that is inclusive and lasting. By the way, this is my outline presentation as far as the budget for 2018 is concerned, the budget philosophy, why do we have proposed this, and the budget aggregates and key dimensions. Now, on this screen, next slide please. Go ahead. Okay, so presented on the screen is the government fiscal program. Yung po ating fiscal program 2018 to 2022. Revenues are targeted to reach 2.79 trillion this 2018. So that is equivalent to 15.9% of GDP. So over the medium term, the revenue level take into account the impact of train law, okay, which will be discussed this afternoon. Yung po yung green, yung maliit po na green dyan, na bar, that is a portion of that train. So revenues are projected to increase by an average of 12% per year to reach 4.39 trillion or 17% of GDP by 2022. Disbursement are targeted at 3.3 trillion. Yan po yung ating disbursement for 2018 rather. So the passage of the train law and our 3% deficit target will allow us to spend more over the medium term, with the disbursement projected to reach at 5.1 trillion, equivalent to 20% of GDP by 2022. Yan po yung ating target. So this rate of government spending will sustain the growth momentum, with the GDP, our gross domestic product, expanding by 7 to 8% from 2018 to 2022. Okay, so this budget strategy is sound, appropriate, and sustainable. The debt to GDP Please click. Okay. Will continue to fall as GDP growth outpace the rise in debt accumulation. So debt to GDP ratio expected to shrink from 42.1% in 2017 to 37.9% in 22. All right, so you can see in the slide. So this means that the deficit target is pegged at 3% of GDP over the medium term. That is equivalent to 524 million in 2018, rising to 761 billion in 2022. So the strategy of the government, so our borrowing will have to have an 80-20 mix, okay, in favor of domestic borrowing. That is to minimize our exposure to foreign exchange fluctuations and enable us to better manage our debt. Okay. Okay, saan natin gagamitin yung budget na yan? Saan ba ginagamit natin yan? So to ensure that the budget proposals, or rather the budget for 2018, are reflective of the priorities of the administration, ito po yung mga priorities that we can use for the allocation of the fiscal space that we did in 2018 allocation. So first, enhancing the social fabric, which is mean the malasakit. This is to ensure people-centered, clean and efficient governance that is pursues swift and fair administration of justice and promote Philippine culture and values. Now, inequality, reducing transformation, or as we say, pagbabago. So expand economic opportunities in agriculture, forestry and fisheries and industry services. That is also accelerating human capital development and reduce vulnerability of individuals and families. Increasing growth potential is ito yung patuloy na pagbabago or pagunlad, I'm sorry. So this is basically involving strategies on advancing science and technology and innovation. So maintaining the foundation of sustainable development, basically accelerating implementation of strategic infrastructure, pursue just and lasting peace, ensure security, public order and safety, ensure ecological integrity, clean and healthy environment. As we know, infrastructure is the top priority of this administration. So for 2018, an amount of 1.1 trillion is appropriated for infrastructure. So this is equivalent to 6.3% of GDP, more than thrice the investment made in 2010 at 1.8% of GDP. So basically, the golden age of infrastructure in the Philippines has already commenced. Now, our commitment to positive change is further shown in the budget reforms that we have ushered in. Number one is the budget reform bill. This is aimed to modernize the budget system that will address gaps in country's PFM system and clarify the limits of executive budgetary powers. So later on, I will discuss further on this. Okay. Number two is the National Government Right-Sizing Program. This aims to attain effective and efficient delivery of public service by streamlining the operations of government. So the measures under the program include yung elimination of functions, of course, programs, projects which are already redundant or no longer needed, and abolition of agencies with overlapping functions that results in confusion of regulatory rules, duplicating requirements, and even, of course, having a red tape and inefficient delivery of public service and goods and services. Okay, so another reforms is the transparency and accountability to the people. All right. So to allow greater scrutiny of the government's strategies and intervention, we restructured the fiscal year 2018 budget to show that what agency programs are undertaken in order to achieve its objective. Largely because of our good governance efforts, the Philippines score, ito po yung latest, kahapon lang po lumabas, the Philippines scored 67 over 100 in the Open Budget Survey of 2017. What does this mean? This recent OBI score has made the Philippines the best in Asia. Number 1 po tayo dyan. Yeah. And 19 in the world in terms of fiscal openness. Okay. So, also Executive Order number 2, which is a series of 2016, was issued last year, implementing the proposed FOI bill so that public can demand for information, reinforcing accountability and transparency in government operations. Okay. Now, the other reform is the local LGUs as an able partner in development. So, the Duterte administration recognizes that the local government units are in the best position to identify and respond immediately to the needs of the communities on the ground. In acknowledging this, the national government must strengthen and support the LGUs, so they may empower to rise in their own. So additional support will be given, based on their adherence to standards of good governance in providing basic services. There will be also the emphasis of decentralizing development from Metro Manila to urban areas and urban areas to rural areas. So yan po yung mga main reforms that we are ushering or implementing and even ushering to Congress. Okay. Now I'll move on to the budget aggregates and key dimensions. Para mayroon naman tayong feel or we could say, saan ba napupunta yung budget? Who has the access to that budget? Okay. Our obligation budget for fiscal year 2018 will amount to 3.767 trillion. Okay, this is equivalent to 21.6% of 21.5% of GDP and 12.4% growth from the 2017 level of 3.350 billion. If you look at the screen, the next slide please. Okay, this is the mention of the budget by expense class. Ito po yung personal services, yung pamsweldo natin, will take the biggest chunk of the budget with 1 trillion. Okay, more than 1 trillion, that is equivalent to 28.2%. This is followed by infrastructure and other capital outlays with 980.1 billion, is 26% share, which will see the largest increase among the other components with 26.7% increase from its 2017 budget. For this year, allocation to LGUs will also overtake MOE with 601 billion, that is 16% share in total budget, which consists primarily of the internal revenue allotment that is equivalent to 522 billion. Special shares of the national taxes, 23.1, and local government support fund, 51 billion among others. So MOE will allocate with 601 billion, mainly to support the delivery of social and economic services. If you will note, debt burden shares or interest payment and net lending in the budget will continue to fall, with its 2018 share at 9.8% of the total budget versus the 10.5% share in 2017. So what does this mean? This allow us that the budget to be used by the productive sector. So lastly, the support to LGUs in terms of equity and subsidy will set at 180.6 billion or 4.8% share of the total budget. Now, another way of looking at the budget is by recipient unit. Okay? So the bulk of the obligation program, next slide please, will be allocated to national government agencies, understandably, with a total amount of 2.6 trillion or 69.4% of the total budget. So LGUs will be empowered as partners in the development and will receive 601 billion or 16%. The decrease in share is due to yung special shares of LGUs. However, the support to LGUs nominally increased as ERA and other transfers, like for example, yung local government support fund, it grew by 7.4% and 30.7% respectively. So, As previously stated, the debt burden will continue to fall, while conversely, the share of budget support to GOCCs grew. Now, looking at the sectoral allocation of the distribution, so the social services sector will continue to be given the biggest share in the budget in 2018 and with 1.42 trillion or 37.8% share overall budget. Though it will have a smaller percentage in the budget compared to fiscal year 2017, the allocation itself grew by 5.5% with DepEd poised to grow by 2.2% to implement its basic education program. Now, the economic services will receive the second largest share of 30.6% with 1.15 trillion allocation. So the sector is the fastest growing for this year, increasing by 25%. In fact, both the DOTR and the DPWH will grow more than 20% for our Build program. Additionally, agriculture also will be supported through a large allocation for the Department of Agriculture. Now, the general public service sector will increase by 13.9% with 655.4 billion allocation or a 17.4 share in the total budget. This is partly due to the increase for COMELEC for the preparation for 2019 elections. Okay. Meanwhile, the defense budget will receive the lowest share of 4.3 of the budget. However, it will still see an 8.6 increase in its allocation from 149 billion in 2017 to 162 billion in 2018. Okay. So the next slide will show us the top 10 executive departments according to size of their budget allocation for 2018. So the budgets of 5 of the top 10 departments will grow faster than the overall budget increase. That is 12.45%. DepEd, or the education sector, will continue to receive a large budget with 580 billion, coupled with the allocation for CHED, SUKS, and TESDA. The total education sector budget is pegged at 704.1 billion, an increase of 7.3%. Now, in keeping with our promise of improving the country's infrastructure program through the Build, the DOTR and the DPWH will grow by 22.3% and 39.2% respectively. So these departments make up about 57.7, almost 60% of the total obligation program for fiscal year 2018. Okay. We also have included in the budget as a mitigating measure due to possible moderate but temporary increase in price due to tax reform or the train. The government has allocated in this budget the implementation of the following mitigating measure. One is a targeted cash transfer program will provide unconditional cash grant of 200 per month to each household belonging to the poorest 10 million, including the 4.4 million existing CCT beneficiaries. 24.5 billion will be lodged to the land bank for the cash transfer. Also, we have the PUB modernization program, which will assist operators and drivers in replacing their old public utility vehicles with more efficient vehicles. So this is around 2.3 billion will be allocated for the implementation of this program, of which the Land Bank of the Philippines and the Development Bank of the Philippines will be allocated with 1.1 billion each to subsidize portion of the equity contribution of buyers. Now, as mentioned, as LGR Partners for Development, we made sure that they were provided sufficient funds. Now, presented on the screen is breakdown of Region 6 budget for infrastructure alone and social protection. And later you'll see the internal revenue allotment. For infrastructure, Okay, Region 7 will get a total of 18.3 billion for infrastructure, mostly for road and irrigation projects. This includes for implementation of the DPWH, the Tubungan, Tuble, San Remeo Road, and an access road leading to Kabangkalan Airport. For irrigation projects, the second stage of the Halao River Multipurpose Project and the restoration, repair, and maintenance of irrigation system around the region will be implemented by NIA. Now, social protection for the Region 6 will reach 10.3 billion, of which around 8.8 billion will be for DSWD's PPP program beneficiaries and pension for indigent senior citizens. Of course, social protection or social infrastructure will still be there also, with a 1.3 billion budget under the DPWH for the construction of flood control projects. Now, here, the region also has a 41.8 billion from the ERA to spend on its initiatives. This is an increase of 7.3% over its 2017 ERA of 39 billion. So, in general, the allocation for provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays grew by at least 7.2%. Of the components, the allocation for cities grew the fastest, even faster than the overall ERA growth of the region, with 7.4% increase from 10 billion in 2017 to 10.7 billion in 2018. Now, similar to Region 6, Region 7 has an allocation of 18 billion for infrastructure, okay, which are also focused on road and irrigation projects. This include the Karkar Diversion Road in Cebu and the Bais Bypass Road in Negros Oriental. The Kalunasan Small Reservoir irrigation project for Bohol was also funded along with the implementation of small irrigation projects around the region. Also for DSWD, social protection will have the allocation of 7.8 billion and a 3.8 billion for the DPWH in social program. Okay, for DSWD, we'll focus on its beneficiaries for the Pantawid Filipino program and the social pension for indigent senior citizen. Similarly, the DPWH projects under social protection will be for flood control projects. Okay, so Region 7 will get an ERA of 36.9 billion, growing also by 7.3% from its 34.4 billion allocation in 2017 to 36.9 billion in 2018. Cities shall also see the largest increase with 7.4% for the Region 7 ERA. So, in conclusion, I would like to note that the budget, this contains the narrative of the Filipino people and our collective vision towards safer, greener, wealthier, and more beautiful Philippines. It tells us the story of public school students, of farmers and fisherfolk, of brave and soldiers and policemen, young professionals, of overseas workers and their families, of indigenous people and the elderly, and what they ought to be. Develop a budget that reforms and transforms. The fiscal year 2018 national budget is about making a meaningful difference in the lives of the youth, the poor, the disadvantaged, the handicapped, and the elderly. Now, it's about making their story a story of success and a positive change. Okay. At this point, I will end my presentation as for the overview of the national 2018 budget. I guess it would be good also to continue now my discussion on the budget reform bill. Okay? Okay lang ba sa atin yon? Tulitan, then we can go to the open forum. Okay. We want to emphasize that the budget reform bill that this was already filed in Congress. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we'll be having our technical working group or a briefing for both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And because this measure would like to seek to modernize the budgeting practice in the Philippines. Okay, so let me spend a few minutes here to give everyone an overview of this important bill and how it will affect the national budget process from 2019 onwards. Basically, my presentation for this budget reform bill will cover the overview of the budget reform bill, the shifting to an annual cash-based budget, the time horizon of transfers to GOCCs and local government units, the multi-year contracts, the budget, how are we going to propose now for 2019 budget, and of course, discussion of the fiscal year 2018 being a transition year. Okay. So the BRB is a landmark law that seeks to strengthen government's accountability to the people for its use of public funds through greater transparency and facilitates the delivery of public goods and services through a more efficient budget system. It also strengthens Congress' power to purse and enables to better authorize and oversees the budget. It secures the irreversibility of budget reforms so far established by our Commission on Audit, the Department of Budget and Management, the Department of Finance, and the National Economic Development Authority, such as the one-year validity of appropriations. One-year validity na po tayo since 2017 and now also 2018. And also the Treasury Single Account and the long-term vision of the country and the Integrated Financial Management Information System, or IFMIS. It supports the implementation of the budget reform program, particularly the shift to an annual cash-based budget, which we'll discuss in the detail. Now, this is the objective of the budget reform bill. You know that in the medium term, the Duterte administration aims to ramp up the Philippine economy to 7 to 8% per year. That is the growth, pushing the country into upper middle income status by 2022 while reducing poverty incidence to 21.6% in 2015, from rather 21.6% in 2015 to 14% by 2022. So really, to support these goals, the government is investing massively in infrastructure development and human capital development. So to catch up with the ASEAN neighbors and to open up economic opportunities to the lagging parts of the country, well, this administration has embarked on a massive infrastructure development program, as already mentioned, the Build, by accelerating investment in public infrastructure from 5.4% in 2017 to 7.3% in 2022. Obligation-based po yan. This is unprecedented program is envisioned to usher, of course, as mentioned, the golden age in infrastructure. Now, to ensure that the expanding national budget leads to actual delivery of programs and projects, government needs to modernize its public financial management process. So that's why the BRB ensures the government is able to fully execute, budget, to deliver goods and services that promote growth and reduce poverty. Okay. Here, ito po yung mga key features ng ating budget reform bill. One is the fiscal responsibility principle, financial management, including the shift to annual cash-based budgeting system, planning, budgeting, and performance, monitoring, budget execution, and Congress power the purse, automation of the PFM process through the Financial Management Information System and the Treasury Single Account, accountability and reporting, internal controls, and enforcement standard sanctions and transition. Okay, so one of the key principles enshrined in the BRB is that government should continue to promote people's involvement. Ito para sa atin po ito. In the management of public resources by enforcing the right to access information on and to contribute in the formulation and implementation of the financial affairs of the government. Di ba magandang ano ho ito para sa atin sa mga civil society organization? So thus the BRB includes provisions that shall institutionalize and strengthen transparency and people's participation in the budget process. Okay, Section 74, in support of the administration's push for freedom of information, ensures people's access to public financial information by requiring DBM to promulgate before the start of each fiscal year the calendar of disclosure that shall contain the schedule of release of budget documents and related information. In addition, Section 75 institutionalizes the publication of the People's Budget, a series of citizens-friendly summaries of key PFM documents, namely the Statement of Fiscal Policy, Proportional Sale Budget, General Appropriations Law, and the Annual Fiscal Report. This is also one reason why we have this OBI, improved OBI from 64 to 67 and being number 1 in Asia as far as fiscal transparency is concerned. Now, Section 76 of the BRB ensures that the government shall establish and implement suitable participatory budget mechanism to facilitate the open, inclusive, and meaningful engagement of citizens throughout the budget process. Meaning to say, from budget preparation to legislation to execution and to accountability and audit. This mechanism includes but are not limited to consultations and partnership with civil society organizations, academics and experts, and other individual and organized stakeholders throughout the annual budget process. So, to aid the empowerment of grassroots organizations and communities in the national budget process and pursue the meaningful devolution of local accountability, the DBM, DILG, and other relevant agents shall facilitate the process wherein CSOs, community organizations, and LGUs conjointly identify local priority poverty reduction and development needs which will serve as input to the formulation of the proposed national budget. I just would like to add that in our 2019 budget call, there's a section there, a 2.5, section 2.5, which is where it says that there is a strengthening or the vertical integration of the national and local budgeting process. Okay. Lastly, the BRB assures the establishment of participator budgeting mechanism, okay, formulated and enforced by the legislator and the COA. Okay. Now, dito na po tayo. Ito na po yung sinasabi nating cash budget as against obligation budget. Okay. So, the DBM, National Budget Memorandum Number 129, ito po yung 2019 budget call, issued on the 3rd of January, and even the Corporate Budget Call, or Memorandum Number 40, or the Corporate Budget Call for fiscal year 2019 issue on the same day, formally introduces the annual cash-based budgeting in the preparation of the 2019 budget. Okay. Stated simply, annual cash-based budget limits incurring contractual obligations and disbursing payments to goods and delivered and services rendered and inspected, accepted within the fiscal year. Within the fiscal year. Naka-underline po. Yan. Payments for this should be settled within the fiscal year. Okay. So the fiscal year 2017 veto message of the President and the 2017 GAA have gradually been shifting the governments to a one-year validity of the obligation-based appropriations. So really the shift to an annual cash-based budget in 2019 is a logical progression from this reform. So really a cash budget will instill, yun po yung gusto nating magawa po, will instill discipline of spending the GAA to just 1 year which is in turn speed up the delivery of services to public and actively promote growth and development. Just to illustrate, yan. First, the shift will affect when contractual obligations should be delivered and rendered. Okay. So, in an obligation-based budget or appropriations, contracts awarded before the end of the fiscal year can be delivered even after the fiscal year. Kahit matapos na to, pwede pa rin. Just for example, 2018, you can still deliver it in 2018, given our obligation-based. Okay, for example, a road project whose implementation is for 8 months, but it's awarded in November, can still be delivered in the subsequent year. This means that at the end of the fiscal year, an agency may have a balance of not yet due and demandable obligations. That is obligation-based. Now, in the case of cash-based budget, okay, take note, all cash, or rather, all contracts should be fully delivered by the 31st or end of December. Using the example here, if 8 months road project contract, this means that the latest, at least, the contract should be awarded by end of March. Dapat i-award mo siya ng March. Okay? So that the project is completed, accepted by the end of the year. Kung 8-month period po yung project nyo. So, later on, I will discuss the implication of the budget of the agencies and even the procurement timelines and how the contract schedule should be structured. Ang gusto lang po namin dito, we want to emphasize that the reform is really about encouraging agencies to be more proactive and disciplined in their management of budget resources. Okay? So this also mean, yung right planning, yon, and of course, implementation. Yung po gusto nating ma-encourage sa ating agencies. Yung link ba, nag-uusap yung taga-planning, nag-uusap yung budget, nag-uusap yung taga-operations, nag-i-implement ng ating project. Okay. So, a contract which will traverse 2 or more fiscal year, ito po naman yung should enter into a multi-year contract which will be covered by yearly appropriation. Okay. Ito rin naman yung isang effect ng ating cash-based budget. So the shift shall also affect when obligations should be paid and settled. Okay, kailan ba settled? Okay, as earlier mentioned, in the current obligation-based budget, inspection, verification, and payment can be done even after the fiscal year. Mahaba. This means at the end of the fiscal year, government has a running balance of due and demandable accounts payable. So, laging mayroong accounts payable tayong binabayaran. Hindi na natapos yan. Alright. So, in contrast, in a cash-based budget, payment can only be done within the fiscal year. But to pay the obligations delivered, accepted, and booked as accounts payable at the end of the fiscal year, yan, ito na po yung change. An extended payment period or the EPP of 3 months in the succeeding fiscal year is, in this case, starting 2020. Okay. Yan ay provide po natin to address that overlap, or rather extended payment. So, here, any and spend appropriation at the end of the fiscal year shall lapse. So take note po. Any and spend appropriation at the end of the year shall lapse. So again, let me remind, mayroon mga taga-agency dito, that even in the shift to cash-based budget, national government agencies will still have obligations. Yung accounting process pa rin po, tuloy pa rin po yun, na nag-obligate pa rin tayo. But this obligation should be delivered within the fiscal year and paid for until the end of the EPP or the extended payment period. Okay. Now let me shift to the time horizon or transfer. Okay. So because of the one-year validity of appropriations that started in 2017, transfers from the national government shall be done within the fiscal year. So the period of disbursement, utilization of these transfers are affected by the shift to annual cash-based appropriation. Ito po yan. So in annual cash-based budget, budgetary support to government-owned and controlled corporations, GOCC, should be disbursed within the fiscal year. Yan po yung sa GOCC. Likewise, program projects transfers to LGUs from the department agencies such as the Health Facilities Enhancement Program of the Department of Health and the Farm to Market Road projects of the Department of Agriculture should be disbursed within the fiscal year. Kasi originally naman talagang sa department po yan. Now, for transfer, similar to the budgets of the national government, any unspent appropriations at the end of the validity period shall lapse. Okay. On the other hand, the internal revenue allotment, the special shares from proceeds of national taxes and fees shall have no limitation. Kasi ano na yan na-transfer na sa kanila. Considered as their revenue already. Alright? So yun po yung ano doon. These statutory shares shall be valid until fully expended as these are their lawful shares in the NG revenue collections. Okay. Anong gusto natin dito? We want the public to participate actively in growing the economy, especially in the rural areas. Hence, extra care and additional time and effort must be extended or exerted in the planning and programming of national programs and projects to be implemented by GOCCs and LGUs so that they can execute the program or project the minute the funds are transferred to them. By the way, we are also in the discussion with the NEDA, the ILG, as far as how the RDC will work in terms of these planning, programming of projects and programs at the local level. Okay. So yun po yung difference ng cash obligation base and the cash base and at the same time the timeline. Now let me go to the discussion of the multi-year contracting in an annual cash-based budgeting system. Basically, the process remains the same. Pareho din lang po yun. We define multi-year projects as those with implementation period exceeding 12 months. So thus, under cash-based budgeting system, agencies can still enter into multi-year contract, provided that they are able to secure a multi-year obligational authority from the DBM. Mayroon po tayo dapat MAYOA as basis for your multi-year contract. So a MAYOA and its equivalent authorities is commitment by the implementing agency or the GOCCs that the annual funding requirements for multi-year projects shall be included in its budget proposal for the covered year. That is consistent with the provided implementation schedule. So mayroon po tayong schedule implementation. So subsequent budgets or items under MAYOA shall be given priority consideration when the evaluation of the proposals. Kaya po, importante po yung MAYOA, you have a multi-year contract or rather multi-year projects that you implement. Okay. So the MAYOA should accurately show the schedule of the annual cash requirements. Take note, annual cash requirements of the multi-year project, not obligation-based. So the annual funding requirements of multi-year projects shall be appropriated annually. Still be appropriated siya. Okay. In addition, the certificate of availability of funds, yung CAF, should be issued annually for multi-year projects based on the budget for the purpose. Okay? So please note that the contracts with implementation periods that are 12 months or shorter should not spill over to the next fiscal year. So that's the essence po ng ating cash-based budget and the one-year validity of our appropriation. Okay, just me take this as a case. For an 8-month project, road project, next slide please, an annual cash-based budget, this project should be begin the construction at least by April, okay, so that it be completed by December because it is a single-year project, so the implementation should not spill over for the next fiscal year. So in addition, the project should be paid for either within the fiscal year or until March of the succeeding year during the extended payment period. Now, let's take example of 3-year road project. Okay, for an agency to be able to enter into a multi-year contract, it should first secure the MAYOA or multi-year obligational authority from the DBM. So this MAYOA shall be the basis for the approved budget for the contract. Yun po yung ABC. So the project shall be part of the GA for 3 years. And the chief accountant shall use the allotments released every year as basis for the annual issuance of the certification of availability of funds or the CAF. So since the project shall be implemented in 36 months, okay, it should commence on January 2019 so that it will end December 2021. So payment for each phase should be settled every year or up to March 31 respectively for under the EPP. Okay. So now let's move now so that I can finish in 5 minutes more. Can you hear me? Okay, next. Ito na po, just to let you know also on how to prepare now for 2019 budget. So as mentioned, the 2019 budget under National Budget Memorandum number 129, this is the budget call, instructs agencies to ensure that the proposals to be submitted to the DBM shall only be for programs, activities, and projects that can be fully implemented within the fiscal year. Ang kulit ko, no? Implemented within the fiscal year. Okay. So we encourage budget and planning officers should work closely with program and project managers to ensure that the proposals are aligned with their implementation schedule. Yun po yung gusto nating mangyari po because you should not work in silos. Kanya-kanya po tayo. This time we should be talking to each other. Okay. Also in the accordance with the revised implementing rules and regulation of RA 9184, the procurement law, and to ensure that programs and projects are implementation ready, agencies should prepare what? Their indicative annual procurement plan alongside the budget proposal in preparation for the early procurement when the NEP is submitted to Congress. So also, agencies are reminded every year, as a general rule, lump sum funds with the agency's specific budget should be disaggregated to the national government agencies' operating units. Dapat naka-breakdown na po yan. This is even more critical in a cash-based budget. So also including here is the CMIs or the centrally managed items should be coordinated with operating units when preparing budget proposal. Okay, prospective non-multi-year contracts should be structured so that they do not spill over to the next fiscal year. Indicative APPs are important because agencies should prepare the budget, okay, proposals with the intent to conduct early procurement once a NEP is submitted to Congress. So this ensures that 12-month contracts are awarded on January and are completed by December 2020, by December, of course, any year. Now, this is my, okay, the two-tier budgeting approach. All right? Dito po yung process po natin wherein we separated the Tier 1 and the Tier 2, wherein the Tier 1 should be based on the actual cash requirements of ongoing programs. Yan po yung ating forward estimates. Kung wala na pong bago at wala nang improvement, wala nang expansion, yun na po yung budget ng agency. Yun yung Tier 1 po natin. While Tier 2 should reflect the annual cash requirement of the expanded or new programs or project, including its impact to the out years. Yun po yung mga bago natin. If you want to expand the program, yun po yung ating Tier 2, but it should be based on the cash requirement. Okay. Now, when we would like to emphasize that Tier 2 proposals should be implementation ready. Okay? This could mean but are limited to the following. Yan po yung kailangan natin. Applicable prerequisite authorities should have been required, like for example, the ICC approval by the NEDA, the DNR clearance, and even the DPWAs, if that is for a building. Of course, right-of-way acquisition should be have been settled, and beneficiaries and even specific location of implementation should have been identified. So, in preparatory work is still needed. The proposal for the first year, of course, should only be reflect the requirements for this. For example, kung right-of-way po ang kailangan mo i-settle within the year, right-of-way muna ang dapat i-propose mo sa budget. At the same time, following year, yun na lang detailed engineering, DED, and of course, for the construction for the next following year. Now, the shift to cash-based appropriation would be ito na po yung transition. Okay, thus, the 2018 budget is still obligation-based. Ito na po yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. May transition year po tayo, this is 2018. So all unpaid obligation as of end 2018 will be paid and issued notice of cash allocation subject still to validation by the DBM. We'll be issuing also instruction next to request from your realistic estimates. Yung it will require agencies to estimate their accounts payable para maiprograma po natin yan before we can compute for the cash budget. So as a policy, government should be winding down its running balance of unpaid obligations. Sana makita natin by 2021 to 2022, at least paliit na po yung accounts payable. If not, mawala na po lahat. Okay. Now in addition, MAYOA for ongoing multi-year projects should be reviewed and adjusted if necessary to reflect the actual requirements per year. Kasi for some, mayroon na po tayong mga MAYOA which are based on obligation-based, but we need to review that given the cash-based na po. This exercise should also serve a notice to your contractors and suppliers of logging projects to step up or lose their cash-based appropriation. Okay. This is basically to ensure that contracts are awarded as soon as possible, strengthen project management to reduce slippages, streamline requirements for billing, and settle accounts payable promptly. In conclusion, so to support the expansionary fiscal policy of the government, streamlining the public financial management system is critical to increase the fiscal and transactional discipline of government. Shifting to the annual cash-based budget instill this discipline. Ito po yung gusto nating mangyari. So the shift enforces the original intent of the appropriations, which is basically the intention of the appropriation for the budget as it was planned and legislated to be fully executed and disbursed within the year. Okay. So this shift is expected to push government not only to speed up spending, but ultimately to ensure timely delivery of results to the public. So really, an annual cash-based budget is our commitment and promise to the Filipino people that they will reap the benefits of the taxes that they pay and as soon as possible. So we hope you as our partner in the development will of course urge the national government agencies, the local government units, and the CSOs in this undertaking to deliver this promise. So thank you and good morning to everyone. All right.
Thank you very much, Director Toledo. That was a very comprehensive discussion of what are we going to anticipate with the 2018 national budget, and at the same time the nitty-gritty and the parlance of the budget reform bill. We are being introduced into the policy, the systems and mechanisms, and how are we trying to reform the existing process and make it work in favor of a good delivery of public service. At this point, we will be hearing some questions for Director Toledo. Our mechanics, it's still the same. Please raise your hand for you to be acknowledged for the question, and then please approach our microphone. State your name and organization, and if we'd like to request you to please direct your question or make your questions brief and direct to the point. Yes, po, sir. We have Miss Jen there to traffic our questions.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ray Lord Aragon of the Provincial Planning and Development Office of Aklan. I just noticed, Director, in your presentation, that at the end of your first presentation, you said that the plan or the budget is prepared for the Filipinos to live on a safer and greener country. However, I just noticed that there is a reduction on environment. It's something like a reduction of 2017, a reduction from 2017, and the amount of something like 27.5 to 25.5 in 2018. Would you be kind enough to explain to us the rationale behind?
Sir, I just want to clarify, you in greening, what kind of specific program do you telling?
Environment.
Environment?
Yeah.
Okay. Because as far as we're concerned, if you will note, we have this climate change expenditure tagging. We're in part of the greening program. As part of that is the environment. And from our tagging exercise, we thought that the climate change expenditure tagging has increased from previous year. I don't have exactly the amount here, but I think the amount later, probably, sir, you can show to me so that we can check if that is the valid reason that nag-decrease mo ba yan. So we'll have to check on that. So do you have the amount there with you or specific programs or the department?
Yeah, okay. It's something like Environment and Natural Resources Department.
Okay.
The budget from 2017 of 27.5 in 2017 to 25.5
Yes,
in
ma'am.
2018.
Okay, sir.
I don't know the reason
Alright,
behind.
Yes. I saw it from the. There must be a reason po. Okay, ganito po yan. In the evaluation of the programs and project that was proposed before, is to consider also the budget utilization ratio of the agency. Okay, nakita po namin when we evaluated the programs of the implementing agency, in this case, the DNR, mayroon po siyang tinatawag na unutilized balance in last year. So that's why yung 2018 budget po natin, bumaba siya, considering that there are still balances from the previous year. So yun po yung consideration po doon.
Okay, thank you
Sorry
very
for
much.
that. Yeah, I remember now. It's in the top 10 department.
Thank you very much, sir, from the province of Aklan. Yes, sir. Your question, please.
Direct to the last question. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. I'm just asking basically what is the status of the budget reform bill?
Okay, sir. So, as mentioned, tomorrow po, there will be a briefing for both houses, House of Representatives and the Senate, and it was already filed in Congress, sponsored by Congressman Nograles. At the Senate, it was sponsored by Senator Ligarda. So we'll be starting the discussion at the technical level. Then we'll be having a public hearing already comes February in Congress, I think exactly February 7, sa House of Representatives, sir.
Was it certified by the President as a...
Yes. It's also part of the certified bill by the President as a certified bill by the President.
So you expect it passage within this...
Yes, sir. We are optimistic that we can have this budget reform bill be passed in Congress this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question, sir. We're having one question. Your name and your organization, and then your question, sir, please.
I'm Ted Locson of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry. There are two things that I'd like clarified.
Yes, sir.
The first one is this is going to be from bottom up in terms of preparation of the different casts, as we say. Has there been already a program in making sure that all of those who are involved are properly aware of the things that they need to do, or else this is again going to be very difficult to implement. The second one, clarification, there are approvals needed from ICC and the DNR clearances. I just hope that there is also a proper coordination, because there are very difficult times in getting approvals and clearances. And if that does happen, we will extend to next year again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for your questions. Okay, on the number one, yes, sir, as I also mentioned already, we have already a discussion with NEDA, DILG, DBM on this consultation process on how these programs and projects from the local communities be going up to the national government agencies, from the regional office to the agency central office. As a matter of fact, in our budget call, there's a provision there at 2.5 that is to institutionalize a vertical integration of this local government, from the national government to local government units, the implementation, or how are we going to propose for the budget from the local government units. On the second concern, actually, sir, concern natin talaga lahat yan. It's not a question, I think. Yes, it's true that we really have to inform or coordinate this one as far as the clearances is concerned. Kasi, of course, sir, we will not put in the budget what is not clear by this authorized agency para hindi na ma-delay ang ating programa. That's why we put it there, that making sure that programs and projects to be included in the proposed budget should have already a clearance from these authorizing agencies, like for ICC, approval, the clearance from the DNR, and even from the DPWH as far as building is concerned. Totoo po yun, sir. We will, actually, sir, we already have this discussion with them also. Thank you.
And then we take, yes, ma'am.
Next question. I'd like to say hello to my former colleague and my friends at DBM. I usually to work for them.
The same office that we belong to before.
The thing is, it's nice to be on the other side of government or society.
All right.
Private sector na ako, civil society.
All right.
But still, I cannot lose my public sector mind, my public expenditure management.
You can help us there.
Yeah, for the right price, yes. My concern...
Ma'am, excuse
my
me.
concern...
Your name, please, ma'am, for proper documentation.
I'm Darlene Casiano from Bacolod, and now working with the Negros Island Bamboo Network. We're trying to put up an industry that's based on bamboo. It's a grass, and we're hoping we can do something about that. And we hope to do that for the marginal, the disadvantaged in the countryside. My question is coming from my local observation. I used to understand the national budget process as a national person. Now that I'm civil society, I'm business person and very local, we still see the same problems about the link of procurement to the national budget. I do not see that anywhere in the reforms. So I'd like to be enlightened where we are in terms of the specifics of the procurement reforms. It's still a sore in the thumb, a sore in the foot, and it's still a problem in the local level. Sad to say.
Okay. It goes with it when we have this shift from the cash obligation-based to cash budget is really the procurement, wherein we want as much as possible that the procurement will be as fast as we can. Given the fact that, of course, cash budget na po tayo, dapat ang procurement natin mas mabilis. That's why in this, not only in the revised IRR of the 9184, the procurement law was revised, is really to fast-track the implementation of the project and to have this early procurement. But also, in the budget reform bill, recognizing that procurement is very important, kasama po siya dyan. But as to localizing it, that will all depend again on how the national government agencies and the regional office of the agency will have to implement the project. So that's why ni-encourage po natin sa agency central office that they have to coordinate with their regional office and even operating unit how this programs and projects really be implemented as fast as they can or within the fiscal year. Hopefully, this budget reform bill will resolve that issue of not implementing or rather yung mas mabagal na pag-implement ng project. Ms. Darlene, thank you for that. Pero we will look into that specific because you're looking for the specific process as far as LG is concerned or local community is concerned.
Can I just put that as a very aching concern? Because at the local
All right.
level, we see that. If you can address that, come down here and let's talk. That will be good.
All right, thank you. As a matter of fact, ito po yung isang i-resolve ng ating coordination with the RDC. Talking with the NEDA and the DLLG, we have already initial talks. As a matter of fact, there will be a dialogue already, the RDC dialogue, this first quarter, because we emphasize with the NEDA that the timing is very important. That even before the programs and projects should be submitted, nakaplano na, o they have already the inputs here from the local community or the local government units. Right. Thank you, Ms. Darlene.
Thank you po for the question.
See you later.
Yes, sir. After kay sir, we will be taking one last question.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mr. Bansa from DepEd National Employees Union. My question, sir, is how does this zero-based budgeting impact on us public sector unions, considering that every year ang incentive bonus lang inilulok after namin in our collective negotiation agreement. Ang concern namin if maka-generate pa ba ng savings na papagkukunan ng incentive bonus, considering that if we can still generate savings out of the zero-based budgeting. Or if we cannot be realized na pag mawala ng savings, we would lobby for DBM to help us Congress na yung say incentive bonus namin na i-legislate na lang by Congress. Thank you.
Okay. Sir, saan uli kayo? I'm sorry. Anong office? DepEd.
DepEd National Employees Union, sir.
Okay. All right.
Kasi lahat na government employees dito, apektado rin including kayo, sir.
All right. Okay. Yes, as far as the use of savings, there was before a policy na dapat hindi na kunin sa savings yung pambayad ng CNA because sabi nga nila, for some agencies, na-implement nila ng project 100%. So, ibig sabihin, wala silang savings. And yet, they perform well. Saan nila kukunin ang CNA? Okay. So, we're looking into, tinitignan po yan, yung policy na yan, on how are we going to address this issue of having that, the use of savings. For some kasi, wala silang savings, and yet na-implement nila yung project nila. So, there's a review going as far as CNA is concerned, because it's a source of the payment for, or rather, ang savings po ang source po ng pambayad ng CNA po natin. So there's a review going on for that, sir. Do we consider that?
Thank you very much, Director Toledo, for the enlightenment. We'll take the last question from the floor. Your name and your organization, please.
Hello, sir. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Eric from Kilusang Pagbabago. We have 3 questions. Are those sanctions for LGU who refuse to follow the cash-based policy? Number 2, and is there a mechanism where the grassroots can monitor and recommend or report to the DBM those LGU who refuse to follow the new policy? Number 3, are there plans to simplify what you are saying to make them understandable to ordinary citizens? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. All right. On the first question, sanction. Okay. Pinakita ko po doon kanina, under the cash-based budget, as far as ERA is concerned, hindi ho siya nalilimit. It's up to the local chief executive on how to implement or spend the money. Kaya po wala siyang period po eh. It's because it's already considered sa kanila as revenue. Okay. Number 2,
means and monitoring po and reporting
Okay.
to the DBM.
Okay. Actually, there's an existing monitoring and reporting po na nangyayari po ng ating sa local governments. But that is large under the DILG and the BLGF of the Department of Finance. But of course, as far as DBM is concerned, marin din pong nakukuha to our regional office, I think. As far as the expenditure is concerned. So mayroon po monitoring yan po, sir, na ginagawa po. I just don't know kung it's already posted and available in the website of both the DILG and the DOF as far as the BLGF is concerned. Mayroon po yung monitoring po na ginagawa. As a matter of fact, there is also a basis for their giving the awards for those who are submitting the report and being monitored properly. Di ba mayroon po tayong seal of good governance? That is part of that, sir.
Sir, the last question from sir is how are we going to communicate the provisions of the reform to the ordinary people?
Okay, this is one way of this kind of regional dialogue is one way of informing people and having the feedback, getting their feedback on all the reforms of the government that we are doing. Di ba sinabi ni Yusek Panadero kahapon, although I wasn't here still, minomonitor ko po kayo sa live. Naka-live po tayo sa Facebook ng, I don't know, PTB4. Di ba sabi niya, this dialogue should be a regular process para malaman ng ating mga mamamayan kung ano ang nangyayari sa ating lipunan o sa ating gobyerno at ating pag-implement ng project. So I think, coming from the USEC Panadero, we will still do that as a regular dialogue with you at the local level. So, yun po yung sagot ko po doon. And, of course, there are other means of how you can participate actually through social media and even through the 888 process. We have right now accessibility to our office or even the office of the President. Di ba nandito sila kahapon because of this program of the government to really want to reach to a lot or the majority of the people in order for us to make this happen, yung ating mga programa at projects na ma-implement and if even sumagot or tumugon sa kailangan ng ating mamamayan dito sa local communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Toledo. How about a round of applause, please, for Director Toledo for graciously entertaining our queries. For those who still have queries, we are running out of time. You may approach Director Toledo during the break. And other questions or other information you may want to know, you may visit the DBM website at www.dbm.gov.ph for more information about the budget. Anyway, as mentioned by Director Toledo, we are streamed live via Facebook through the RTVM page, I think, and then the DILG Region 6 Facebook page. So for our other friends who want to join us here, with the sessions for today, they can see us live and they can hear us, the discussions here at SMX Bacolod City. Anyway, we tackled the budget in the previous session. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, which is revenue. So from budget, we transition to revenue. So to give us an overview of the next session and to introduce our distinguished speaker, I now call on the Vice President, Director for the Visayas of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Samuel L. Tioson.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome my colleagues from the business community, especially the PCCI local chamber members who have joined us for the tax reform part of our two-day program. We are glad that the program today started with an overview of yesterday's consultations on open government and participatory governance program, and that the largest audience from the business sectors is taking part in this morning's discussion on national budget and national budget reform. We are moreover thankful that we have given this opportunity to dialogue with the champions of the comprehensive tax reform program. These reform initiatives are critical to our economic development agenda. The Visayas, as you know, is a very fragmented area, made up of different island provinces. To get one province to another key town or city, one has to take different modes of transportation, land, sea, and air. We have some of the best islands in the country and in the world, but connectivity and development issues have hindered our capacity to build on our competitive edge, particularly in tourism and its upstream and downstream industries. One of the crucial components and key premise of tax reform agenda is Build, Build, Build program of this administration. Roads and bridges that will connect the islands in the country, airports and seaports that can accommodate cargoes and the expected influx of foreign and local tourists. ICT and telecommunication services that would make it easier for us to access regional and local markets. For us in the business community, we want to make sure that funds generated from the tax reform measure will be efficiently allocated to such projects that have economic benefits across all sectors that will build on the competitive edge of localities, thereby contributing to expansion of local economy. This is where we see critical interface of tax and budget reforms, an open and participatory governance program. The involvement of the civil society and the business sector is important not only to purpose of transparency and accountability, but also we have a unique perspective on infrastructure and connectivity requirements that drive the local economy. In addition, we understand the pulse of the local people who only want to see that their money as a taxpayer flow back to them in the form of better public services and utilities. Backed by the promise of better take-home pay resulting from cuts made in personal income taxes and increased collection from expansion of VAT and excise taxes, the first package of the reform under the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program has been passed in December last year. Just how much package one will impact on our pockets as consumers and as business people is just one among many questions that we would like to answer in today's forum. We also aim to understand where the additional revenue coming from these taxes will go and where are in store for us is next package of reform, which will be touched on corporate income tax and the modernization of fiscal incentives. Underlying this concern is the foremost question: how will this reform measure expand our economy and improve our lives? Ladies and gentlemen, with this morning to speak on the tax reform on acceleration inclusion is the lady in charge of fiscal policy and planning with a focus of tax reform program at Department of Finance. She was part of the DOF team which advocated for the passage of 6 sin tax reforms in 2012 and VAT reforms in 2005. Today, she is still the top go-to person of fiscal sector and tax reform package. Please welcome ASEC Maria Teresa Habitan.
Good morning to everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. I'm back here in Bacolod and now to discuss with you what has happened to Package 1 of train. Last year I was also here advocating for the passage of train and also explaining to a group of people from Bacolod what the package was all about. Now let me try to tell you what has happened to it after it was signed into law last December 19, 2017. Now what will be the contents of my presentation? I will be here to discuss with you the key provisions of the train law, and the impact on income, impact on inflation, and the fiscal impact. What are the key messages of this presentation? Chiefly, this tax reform package 1 is an important milestone in our history. It's the first time that we did this tax reform package, which is not debt or deficit driven, and it was not also as a condition to any lending by any external creditor. So for the first time, the purpose of the package, of the tax reform package, is poverty and inequality reduction. It's also the first of several tax reform packages which we will once and for all address the structural problems which have plagued our tax system that has made it unfair, complex, and inefficient. The overarching goal of the tax reform is to have a low rate and broad base. Okay. Now, it also corrects the long-standing inequality of the tax system, giving relief to 99% of taxpayers after 20 years of non-adjustment of the personal income tax structure with broadening the tax base. In Package 1, Congress also passed the proposed reform to generate 2/3 of the needed revenues for 2018, and which is what Director Toledo has been telling you, and is expected to facilitate the balance early this year to help us achieve our revenue and deficit targets. Okay. So, kanino ho ba mapupunta ang train? Mapupunta po sa DBM through Director Toledo. He will have the pleasure of spending what we will collect from train. So what are the key provisions of train? First, on personal income tax, and I think I still have to find somebody who is unhappy with this provision, and that's mainly because I do not know of any person who earns 8 million pesos annually. Now, as I think everybody knows, or I hope now that after this presentation you would know, that the first 250,000 of our annual taxable income will now be exempt from income tax. So zero po yun, no? In addition, the first 90,000 of the 13th month pay and other bonuses will also be exempt from income tax. Even more joyful is that effective tax rates will have been reduced. It's already reduced for 99% of taxpayers, except nga po dun sa mga may 8 million pesos annual taxable income, for whom the tax rate is increased from 32% to 35%. Now, in the next slide, we will see the next slide. That is how our income tax schedule now look like. For an annual income between 400,000 and 800,000 pesos, the tax rate is now 25% of the excess of 400,000 plus 30,000 pesos. So previously, yun pong 500,000 pesos na annual income was already subjected to the highest marginal tax rate of 32%. That now goes down. Many of that will go down to 25%. For annual income between 800,000 and 2 million pesos, the tax rate is 30% of the excess over 800,000 plus 130,000 pesos. For an annual income between 2 million pesos and 8 million pesos, the tax rate is 32% of the excess over 2 million plus 490,000 pesos. And finally, those earning 8 million pesos, over 8 million pesos will be subjected to a higher tax rate of 35% of its excess plus 2,410,000 pesos. Kumbaga, to whom much is given, much is also expected by way of taxes. Now, even further good news is that these rates will be reduced again starting in 2023. Okay. Now, what's the impact on the taxpayer personal income? A clerk, for example, who earns or who receives a monthly salary of 15,000 pesos last year paid 7,000 pesos in taxes. This year, because of the train, he will be exempted. This person will now be exempted. The call center agent with a monthly salary of 21,000 pesos used to pay almost 22,000 pesos every year in taxes. This year, starting this year, this person, if he has not yet been promoted to a higher paying job description, will no longer pay anything in income tax under the tax reform. Okay. So, moving on, Train also reformed the estate and donors taxes. So, estate and donors taxes, the rates have been lowered to a single rate of 6% from the previous graduated tax rates. For estate tax, there is a standard deduction of 5 million pesos to simplify that system. In addition, there is also an exemption for the first 10 million pesos for the family home. And for donors tax, the 6% rate applies for net donations above 250,000 annually. So for those with a kind heart and who have in their possession enough money to donate, this should be an incentive for you. Okay. Now we move on to the more interesting oil excise rates. Congress approved various rates depending on the oil product. For example, the excise tax on diesel per liter will be 250 pesos in 2018, 450 pesos in 2019, and 6 pesos in 2020. On the other hand, excise tax on gasoline per liter will be 7 pesos in 2018, 9 pesos in 2019, and then 10 pesos in 2020. This means that starting late January 2018, the indicative pump price for diesel will be around 35.60 pesos per liter, given no other changes in the external environment has happened, and 49.80 pesos per liter for gasoline. Okay. Now, what's the price effect of excise on inflation? We know that this has been one of the major concerns about the proposal to increase excise taxes on petroleum products. Our analysis indicate that overall inflation will increase by less than 1%. It's about 0.7% due to higher oil prices in 2018 brought about by the increase in excise taxes. Food prices may increase by up to 0.3%, and transportation up to 0.1%. We believe that these increases are quite minimal and manageable, especially compared to the savings from lower income taxes. Now, looking back, how has the economy done under previous regimes when diesel prices rose? Our history supports our previous analysis. For example, between January 2016 and January 2017, diesel prices increased by almost 14 pesos. In terms of percentage, that's 75.9% increase. However, inflation remained stable at 2.7%, and food, transportation, and electricity, gas, housing, and water did not increase significantly. So these are data obtained from official government sources, from the Department of Energy, from the Philippine Statistics Authority, and can always be verified. And these are what supported our proposals last year. Okay. If you look at how much it would increase in terms of the price of commodities, we will see, for example, that rice together with other essentials such as pork, sardines, fish, and noodles also did not increase in prices significantly despite the 75.9% increase in the price of diesel. Now, the train law also introduced mitigating measures for the increase in the oil excises. To protect the poor and the vulnerable from the impact of moderate increases in prices, the DSWD in its budget has been provided enough budget to provide targeted cash transfers to the poorest 10 million households at the amount of 200 pesos per month in 2018 and 300 pesos per month in 2019 and 2020. This will be implemented in the first quarter of 2018. The SWD will identify beneficiaries based on the listahan, the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, and the social pension beneficiaries. The budget for the unconditional cash transfer is included in the 2018 budget, details of which are with Director Toledo of DBM, and it totals 25.7 billion pesos. Okay. Now, we move on to the coal excise tax. The train law, and this provision was introduced by Congress, increased the excise tax on both domestic and imported coal from 10 pesos per metric ton to 50 pesos, 100 pesos, and 150 pesos in 2018, 2019, and 2020, respectively. For some background, the 10 pesos per ton tax was provided for in 1976 and has not been changed until the train law was passed. Domestic coal will remain exempt from VAT, and with an average price of 9 pesos per kilowatt hours, the impact on the Meralco electricity price of coal is just 2 centavos per kilowatt hour. The next slide will show you the impact on electricity. For example, those who consume 100 kilowatt hours per month or even lower and pays about 780 pesos per month will pay only an additional 2 pesos due to coal and 13 pesos more with oil and excise and VAT. Okay. On the auto excise, another interesting provision of the train law. The cheapest vehicles will face 4% rate, and the most expensive vehicles will face 50% rate. Now, for some of you who might have attended our previous last year's discussion on train, the rates that we see now under the law are different from those that the DOF proposed. The tax rates are based on net manufacturing or importer's price, which means below the margin, before the margins of the importer and dealer are added. Pickup trucks and purely electric vehicles will be fully exempt from the excise, while hybrid cars will be taxed at 50%. Now, the next slide shows you what the impact of the new tax rates are with reference to suggested retail prices of motor vehicles. You can see that it looks like a Christmas tree lying down. No? So relative to 2017, this chart shows you that cheap cars, relatively cheap cars, will generally pay more under the new tax rates, while expensive cars will pay less. Okay. Now, sweetened beverages. On the sweetened beverages, Congress approved a 6 pesos per liter for drinks containing caloric or non-caloric sweetener, and 12 pesos per liter for drinks containing high fructose corn syrup. For example, the price of a 1 liter bottle of regular soft drink will increase from 30 pesos to 42 pesos, while 1 liter of diet soft drink will increase from 30 pesos to 36 pesos. The tax hopes to minimize the consumption of soft drinks or soda, as this is not good for the health. Well, soft drinks or any other sugar-sweetened beverage. Now, 3-in-1 coffee and milk are exempted. Okay. Moving on to the value-added tax. I know that Bacolod is not just a city of smiles, it's also a city of sugar. So, anyway. So moving on to the VAT. We wanted to simplify the VAT system and make it fairer. And the train has repealed 54 out of the 61 special laws with non-essential VAT exemptions. Cooperatives remain exempt. Starting this year, condo and association dues will also be exempted. On the other hand, medicines for diabetes, high cholesterol, and hypertension will be exempted starting 2019. The exemptions for PAGCOR and casino, domestic coal, renewable energy, credit surety, countryside, barangay business enterprise, mini hydro, and tourism will not be removed. So there are many more other special laws that need to be repealed. Purchases of senior citizens and people with disability continue to be exempted from the VAT. For the average Filipino, this will not have an impact as the removal of exemption will only affect the groups that are enjoying it. On other taxes, the train has also provided amendments. So Congress passed other revisions to excise taxes on mining. It went up from 2% to 4%. Congress also introduced a new an excise tax on cosmetic procedures. This is 5% of gross receipts. There's also a gradual increase in tobacco excises from 31 pesos and 20 centavos per pack in 2018 to gradually increasing to 40 pesos per pack by 2023, after which there will be an annual indexation of 4%. On financial taxes, Congress also passed a doubling in the rates for DST, or documentary stamp tax, except for loans, which were increased by only 50%, and property savings and non-life insurance, which were not increased at all. Congress also increased the withholding tax on interest income for foreign currency deposit units from 7.5% to 15%. There's also an increase in the capital gains of non-traded stock from 5 to 10% to 15% final tax on net gains. And finally, Congress also increased the stock transaction tax from 0.5% to 0.6% of the transaction value. Among the provisions of TRAIN are tax administration measures. So there are reforms on tax administrations in BIR and BOC, and these are crucial parts of our tax reform. The approved TRAIN law mandates for fuel marking and metering of petroleum products and introduces e-invoicing, e-sales reporting, and e-connectivity for large taxpayers. And take note of the last of number 3 there, mandatory maximum of only 4 pages tax return. So ayaw na po nung masyadong makapal at mahaba. On earmarking for the first 5 years, the revenues raised by the tax reform program have been earmarked to fund the President's priority infrastructure and social programs, the build, among others. 70% of the revenues will fund build, new military infrastructure, sports facilities in public schools, and water supply infrastructure in public places. 30% will fund social services, which include programs for sugar farmers, investments in education, health, social protection, employment and housing, and the unconditional cash transfer to the poorest 20 million households. The tax reform will also fund the provision of a social benefits card, which would help the government identify qualified beneficiaries for other social mitigating measures, such as the fuel vouchers for public utility jeepneys and fare discounts for all public utility vehicles. There were vetoed items in RA 10963, or the TRAIN law. The President vetoed the following items in the law. First, the reduction of the income tax rate of employees of regional headquarters. Second, the zero rating of sales of goods and services to separate customs territory and tourism enterprise zones. Third, the exemption of various petroleum products from the excise tax when used as feedstock or raw material. Fourth, the exemption from percentage tax of gross sales or receipts not exceeding 500,000. And lastly, also, the earmarking of the incremental tobacco taxes, because these are already provided for under existing laws. Now, after Package 1, we also have a Package 1B, which we hope will pass Congress in the first quarter of 2018. Now, what are included in Package 1B? There's the estate tax amnesty. There's also a general tax amnesty, changes in the motor vehicle user charge, and the relaxation of bank secrecy and automatic exchange of information. Okay. Now, let me briefly mention the fiscal impact of TRAIN. This table is a 5-year summary of the revenue impact of TRAIN, which includes the vetoed provisions, with the impact of the vetoed provisions by the President. So over the course of 5 years, we expect to raise over 786 billion pesos in revenue with this law. These revenues will fund the President's priority social and infrastructure programs. In Package 1, Congress passed 2/3 of the needed revenue for 2018, and it is expected to pass the balance early in 2018 to help us achieve our revenue and deficit targets. This year, we aim to generate a total of 128.8 billion pesos in revenues, with close to 90 billion pesos under Republic Act 10963, and the balance of 38.9 billion pesos under Package 1B. Now, to have an idea of what the tax reform can fund, it can fund one of these different options. 629,120 public school classrooms, or the hiring of 2,685,101 additional public school teachers, or the construction of 60,483 rural health units, or 484,326 barangay health stations, or 1,324 provincial hospitals, or 35,745 kilometers of paved roads, or 786,400 kilometers of temporary bridge upgrades, or 2,665,763 hectares of irrigated land. All these projects will help improve our lives. Now, Package 1B is critical to keeping our 3% of GDP deficit target. To meet this target, for the rest of the administration, or until 2022, we will need to pass the rest of the packages. So there's a 2+, there's a Package 2, there's a Package 2+, Package 3, and Package 4. No succeeding packages if Congress does not pass any of the succeeding packages, means either a breach of the deficit target, which can hurt our economy, or a cut in government spending, which can compromise the President's infrastructure program, and also the improvement in the quality of life of the average Filipino. Now, these are the next steps. The next packages of the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program. So you will be seeing us probably a lot more in the near future. On January 16, last week, we submitted to Congress, both houses, our proposal for Package 2, which will lower corporate income taxes and modernize the fiscal incentives. The proposal for rice tariffication has already been submitted by NEDA in 2017. By the end of January 2018, up to next week, we will be submitting Package 2+, which includes reviewing again rationalization of the taxes on tobacco, reviewing alcohol taxes, mining, and coal. By the next half of the year, we aim to submit Package 3, which tackles property taxation and property valuation, and finally Package 4, which tackles passive income and financial taxes. To end, let me say that we are at a critical juncture today. The easier path is to continue with existing policies that might bring high growth temporarily, but also ensure high poverty and economic exclusion. The more challenging path, the more difficult one, is to reform the fiscal and economic policies of our country so that growth happens with equity. So, as we usually end our presentation, please let us be partners for change. We encourage that you visit our official social media accounts to get more updates on TRAIN. And we would also like to highlight that the DOF tax calculator is now available to be used in our website. Thank you very much.